Good morning, everybody, and we're just live on Facebook at the moment, so for the first 10 minutes, and then we stop and have a discussion between the people who are online, and they can come up with all their questions. So first of all, what is grounding? The reason I'm doing this topic is that quite often I make a comment to somebody about grounding and they go, "What are you talking about, Olive? I don't understand." And it's not being sent to your bedroom for bad behaviour, I'd like to make out. So that's not what it is. So what I thought I'd do today was to do a couple of topics on grounding. And it is one of the most important things we teach. And this afternoon I'll explain how it relates to learning. So this morning is just basic grounding, if you like. And when I do a lot of work with learning differences, and one of the most important things, and one of the things that makes so much sense to people, is when I start introducing grounding. And the younger you can introduce it to people, the better. And it's probably the biggest takeaway. And it's not woo-woo-y, it's very practical. And so, first of all, let me just cover why you should be interested in grounding. Firstly, there's so much happening at the moment at such a fast pace, it may become really difficult to stay stable anyway. And so that's an additional problem we have at the moment. My Calm app the other day just came up with a comment to me: "With a calm and clear mind, the grip of stress loosens." And I thought that was a really nice thing to say. So I thought I would pass that one on to you. It's about feeling connected to the ground, and it's about feeling connected to others. It calms your nervous system and your anxiety, which is all good. And the chaotic mental images that can generate even as night terrors that many people with learning differences have are significantly affected by grounding. You may have met other words for it, like centered, or feeling comfortable, or feeling fully integrated into your body. You may have heard grounding or grounded. People may say balanced or connected to the earth. All of those things are exactly the same thing. And it's just a question of what you might be familiar with and what comments you're comfortable with. I met a girl who was a wrestler, I think, about a teenage wrestler several years ago. And she looked at me absolutely crazy about grounded. And I said, "Well, when you're wrestling, to feel really strong, what do you do?" And she went, "Oh, that's centered." Right, so okay, we used her word of being centered. It's highly contagious. It's catching. And so if you've got one person in the room who is really ungrounded and really stressed, you're likely to have other people. So if any of you are teachers, then your stress can get you ungrounded. It can transmit it over to your children. The other way around is that if you're really calm, they'll start to catch being really calm. So it's a two-way thing, and it's really important that you understand that it's really catching. And the other thing about being really catching is that you can be grounded 1 minute, and another 5 minutes later, your child can be really ungrounded because something's gone wrong in their life. So if they got really upset about something, they'll go from being grounded to being not grounded instantly. And that's really important to understand. And it's normal. If you think of sport, then all the sports have got grounding in them. If you think of playing golf, for example, you've got your hands on a golf club, you're wiggling around, and then you're really connected to the ground before you swing the club and hit the ball. If you think of footballers taking penalties, they get really firmly connected to the ground before they hit something. So all of the sports, another one, of course, is diving off the high diving board. People who can do a handstand and then go backwards into the water with all those twists and turns like some of our divers do, they've got to be really grounded up there, or else they're just going to fall over. So what do our children know? this is interesting for parents and for teachers. Their experience pre-birth and post-birth depends on their mother's grounding, because they're not used to they're not grounding through themselves. They're grounding by catching it from their parents. So when they're in the womb, if you're a really calm mum, you're likely to have a really calm baby in the womb. When the baby's born, you're doing the carrying it around, and so you're going to be transmitting to that baby the feeling of being grounded or not. Gravity is actually one of the first senses that they have to deal with when they're born. If you think about being put in a cot for the first time on your own, gravity is the first time, that's the first time you've really met gravity. And so you start learning through gravity how to get grounded. And grounded parents have a huge impact on their children, because if you're grounded, they'll catch it. If you're not, they won't. And a lot of the traumatic experiences of young children are generated by the fact that they are, one of those three are not grounded. Children quite often know they want to be grounded, but they don't actually know how to do it, and they don't even know what it is. And so they intuitively just know they want to walk around without any shoes on. Now, shoes are one of the worst things we can do for being grounded, because as you all know, rubber of a shoe insulates you from the earth, and rubber tires on bikes or cars insulate you from the earth again. And so kids will typically want to be walking around without shoes on, and of course that's got certain problems in the family and in school. But there are some schools now who are encouraging kids to just to not wear shoes or to wear slippers. There's some children who want to walk on tiptoes. That's an interesting one, is that whether that's something to do with grounding, but whether it's about wanting to be grounded or wanting to be ungrounded is another matter. You may have heard of children who disappear under loads of clothes and teddies and weighted blankets and all that sort of stuff. That's because they want to be more grounded. They want to be held down. And that if they have got very fidgety legs or feel uncomfortable, they're likely to fidget a lot. And again, that can be all about being grounded. So grounding has got a really important a really important part to play. What gets you ungrounded? Aeroplane travel gets you totally ungrounded. That's the first thing. 35,000 feet above the planet. And if you ever notice when you're trying to walk in an aeroplane, regardless of whether the aeroplane's bumpy, it's pretty difficult to walk in a straight line. And when you get back on the planet, then you're going to feel really, really weird again. Stress creates blocks in your energy system, so that will prevent you from getting grounded. Busyness, panic, danger, all of those things. Get me out of here. Too much overwhelming will definitely get you ungrounded. And the best remedy is if you're feeling overwhelmed and you need too much energy, is to try and feel safe in your body and physically grounded. You can do all sorts of things, which I will come to later, about what you can do. So let's just have a little look at the non-human world. If you think of a seed, think of a seed in your hand, you put it in the ground, what happens? It grows roots down into the ground, then it grows green stuff above the ground. And so it's doing its own grounding. And what's happening there is that it's getting nutrition from the ground, and it's getting waste products going down into the earth. Trees are a perfect example. Just look at that tree. I hope you can see it on the recording. Just look at that beautiful tree with all those roots going right down into the earth. And gravity is known about every animal and every insect. You don't see birds flying upside down, and you don't see insects flying upside down. You think of a building, the foundations of a building, if the foundations are strong, they're less likely to be affected by everything going on around them. If they are weak, then they might well be blowing over. And if you remember the gales of several years ago, when a lot of the trees fell over, it was because if you looked at what their root system looked like when they fell over, it was very shallow. And so electrical grounding, of course, is our 13 amp, in the UK anyway, our 13 amp ring main. The third pin is grounding. And so it is very normal that a whole building is grounded. Let me just give you a little example of what you can do. And for this, you can stand up if you want to, but I want to give you a little example of how to get yourself grounded or your children really, really easily. If you stand up, you can check whether somebody's wobbly or not, or they can check that they are. So just think of all those things that you've got to do today or this week and check how stable you feel. Where are those things? Are they above your head? And how many of them are there? And can you think of those things that are keeping you so busy and just move them down into your body? Now bring your attention to the soles of your feet, with you feeling your toes and your heels against the ground. Imagine you've got tree roots growing out of your feet, right down to the center of the earth and spreading right out. Now breathe through your nose, in through your nose to the count of 4, and out through your nose to the count of 4. Breathe right down into your belly, which opens up like bellows, with your diaphragm moving. Relax into your feet and imagine releasing any stress you've got through the roots and out into your roots below the ground. So on every out breath, you let go of stress down into the ground. And imagine bringing up the earth's nutrients and strengthening your body on the in-breath. And now check how you feel. And you can keep doing that. Nobody has to know you're doing that. You can keep doing that to release anything until you feel properly comfortable in your body. So what's happening when you're ungrounded? You're keeping your brain really busy. It's doing all sorts of things. You're watching and you're listening at too much information, which may be quite chaotic. And you will notice people who are ungrounded. They might be, you might think they're a bit off on one, so they're busy doing other things than actually communicating with you. People have an expression of climbing up the walls, anywhere but here. And they might be gulping breaths, so they're breathing through their mouth. And the important thing to remember is you can flick between being grounded and being ungrounded in seconds. So I'll give you a little bit of science here. The earth has its own electrical charge, which is abundant in antioxidants and free radicals, reducing electrons. And the soles of your feet are so important. And I always remember reading a comment from one of the founders of reflexology. She was Eunice Ingram, the mother of modern reflexology, who said the worst thing we've ever done basically is to put shoes on our feet. And the earth has got its own natural charge, so we don't want to be separated from it. Stepping on the earth with bare feet allows the body to receive all these electrons and potentially reducing inflammation, because these electrons can go into your body and it can reduce inflammation, it can reduce stress, it can reduce pain, and it can improve sleep. So basically, as a friend of mine said, it's your membership card to planet Earth. So let me just tell you in a few minutes some things you can do to get more grounded. Adults, it's surprising how few adults know about grounding. And of course, if they don't know about grounding, then their children are unlikely to know about grounding. You can do various mindfulness techniques. You can do yoga and Pilates. There is hundreds of ways you can do grounding. And you can do soothing music. That takes a little bit longer, and of course everybody else is going to know about that. You want to consciously get your feet firmly planted on the floor, preferably with no shoes, preferably on the earth. So if you're sitting there at the moment with your legs crossed, then just see what it's like if you've got your legs flat on the floor. It's the most powerful way to get grounded. Touching the earth with your bare hands or even your bare feet, actually. So you need full deep breaths in and out through your nose and down into your diaphragm. And of course, walking in nature helps. I had, some years ago, I bought a pack of cards, which are 52 cards about grounding. And I'm just going to describe to you a few of them. There's one of them, which is called Rediscovering Gravity. Focusing on the weight of your limbs reminds you that you are pulled down, i.e. grounded, by the natural force of gravity. Washing your hands, putting your hands in water. We're doing a lot of washing your hands at the moment. Every time you wash your hands, think of being more grounded and more fully in your body. Hydration. Oh, hydration's in there twice, but one of this card here. 70 to 80% of your body is water. The less, if you don't drink water to keep topping it up, then you're going to notice the difference. And walking on the earth. And visualizing your tree roots is just a lovely thing to do, as I was doing earlier. There is a lovely one that I adopted from Art Geiser, who I met many years ago, and he said, every point of, and you can try this one, every cell in your body also has a point of light. Just imagine that all the points of light are all connected to every cell of your body. So let them connect together and see how that feels. Labyrinths are a great idea for kids. A labyrinth, if you don't know, is not a maze. There is only one way in and only one way out. And it's really good at helping right-left brain integration. And so I often get somebody who is feeling pretty ungrounded to do a labyrinth. And within a few seconds, firstly, they really enjoy it. And secondly, they find it really relaxing. And I've had kids in school, when I go back into school, and they go, okay, can we do labyrinths first, please? And there is a sand timer, for example. This is another tool I use for kids, is that if you've got a sand timer and you're feeling really ungrounded, just turn it over and just watch it until you feel really connected to your body again. And you can get kids doing that for themselves. If you give them a sand timer, they can do their own. It's like a 1-minute timeout so that they can get grounded again. And bubbles is another lovely way of helping people cheer up and get more grounded, is that those bubbles, these sort of things that are really cheap to buy, and as you breathe in and breathe out slowly, which has to be through your mouth, but that's not a problem if you're only doing it for a few minutes, and that will actually calm your nervous system. And so the idea is remind yourself as often as possible. And just to finish, what does grounding look like? Try creating a picture of what grounding looks like for you. It might have a video, it might have a sound, it might have a feeling, even a taste or a smell. And just you'll see yourself being calm. You might see yourself having gentle, deep breathing, being well rested in a comfortable environment, rested sleep. And there is something about keeping grounded when you're asleep, which is more of a challenge to start with, but as your nervous system gets used to being grounded, it will be easier. So what else does your grounding look like to you? And this is a personal thing, and you can decide whatever it is for you. But what I wanted to do this morning was just give you a starter, and then to understand grounding. And then this afternoon, I'm going to talk to you about the effects of grounding on learning and learning differences in particular. So thank you all for joining me there.